Hey guys, welcome to Geared Forward. My name's Paul, and today we'll be taking a look at this guy. This is the Otacle K1, the second multi-tool style thing to come out of Olight, and this is more in line with a Swiss Army knife analog rather than the Leatherman-esque tool that we got previously. So let's jump right into it with a size comparison, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the comparisons that you can draw with this after we take a look at the tools. So first off, we have a 58mm Swiss Army knife Classic up top, and down below a 91mm. So as you can see, it is slightly longer than the Classic, but much smaller than the 91. And jumping on into the tool overview and general design, so we have some flat anodized aluminium scales. Overall, a pretty thin and flat tool. As you can see up here, we have a little notch. This is the tweezers. We've got little slant tip tweezers. We don't have anything on the top, just a little bit of a bend to grab onto, which works just fine. And then we have a knife blade, the little sharpening choil. A combo tool, so here we have a wire stripper, bottle opener, can opener. You could treat this as a little bit of a package opening tool on the end here. It's not quite sharp enough to do a good job of that in my opinion, but you could easily fix that yourself. And a little bit of a screwdriver tip. I would not really advise prying with this. Just because it's so long, you've got a lot of leverage acting against you on the actual tool. And finally, we have some scissors. Now, the scissors are partially serrated, so we have one side of the jaw that is serrated, and one side that is just a normal straight edge scissor. The jaw is locked in place at the fulcrum with this detent here. So whilst you could probably push this out to open them further, I wouldn't really recommend it. So this is about how wide you're going to get the jaws opening. Nice spring action. The spring is kind of gentle. It's not really pushing that hard against you, but I've used these scissors a little bit. They're not as good as Swiss Army knife scissors, in my opinion, Victorinox scissors. They get the job done. I'm not a huge fan of serrated scissors, but I've used this to open some packages, cut the labels off, the tags off some clothing. It did just fine. Even when you have the sewn on kind of label, where you really just have to get in and do kind of like an end cut, it did that just fine. So overall, the tools on this are very reminiscent to some degree of a Classic, and I think that this is going to be compared to a Classic a lot, which is why I think it's very important to highlight. Now, I will be talking about it compared to a Classic, but the actual point of comparison for a Victorinox Swiss Army knife analog is this guy. This is the Ambassador. Is a 71mm model, which is now sadly discontinued, but this form factor, it's also the same size as the money clip, is actually an excellent size of Swiss Army knife in my opinion, if you can get a hold of it. And if we actually line them up, you can see that it's much more comparable in size, which is important when you're drawing comparisons against the Classic, because the size is a limiting factor a lot of the time. Let's just get all the knife blades out to compare. So as you can see, the Classic really actually frame this in shot, shall we? So the Classic really isn't competing, and even the Ambassador, you've got some differences here with the choil and whatnot. One of the big things you're going to get different here is the stock thickness. So as you can see, we do have much thicker stock on the Ambassador, and kind of an in-between size on the K1. Now, I think it's important to highlight that this is actually the more appropriate comparison point, because when you start comparing apples to oranges, which is what this comparison is, you run into things like the K1 has a more capable knife. It just does. It's longer, the blade stock's thicker, it's got that choil to make sharpening a little easier, the point's a little bit more pronounced. The scissors are not as good in design and execution in my opinion, but they're larger scissors. They're going to get the job done better, and if you compare the nail file to the combo tool, there's just more going on, right? So I think that you do the Classic a disservice if you really compare these two. This is not really a fair comparison, but as this guy is discontinued and this is much more popular, this is actually the competition it's facing. In terms of overall tool performance, I like the knife. The knife has performed well for me. I will say that out the box, this was not as sharp as I would like it to be. I gave it a couple of pass-throughs on a ceramic Victorinox pull-through just to hone up the edge a little bit. The edge finish itself, kind of rough. It is what it is. But in comparison to the Swiss Army knife blade shape, we do have a nice, more pronounced tip, which is great for getting in there and doing some fine work or getting underneath. The example I gave earlier, the threaded clothing tags you can get on waistbands and such. I like that it has a sharpening choil. It is a very capable knife. Now, as this is flat scales, that's nice for carry and it looks nice, but just be aware, like, it's not gonna fill your hand like the rounded Salador of a Swiss Army knife is. It's not a big deal, especially in something this size. Scissor wise, I don't like fixed scissors in terms of the fulcrum. I much prefer being able to open the jaws wider to kind of like get in there. So this isn't ideal, especially since this is not wide. I mean, if I was cutting something with a Swiss Army knife, like, that's the standard, that's what it's going to bounce back to, and it's pretty comparable there. But of course you have all this extra room. I'm also not a huge fan of this spring design. Now, this is Torx fasteners all around. You can disassemble this quite easily. However, should this spring fail, and springs in sprung pliers, spring action scissors are a point of failure, I much prefer a much easier user replaceable spring option. Like on the Swiss Army knives we have, if we just pull this out a little bit, the spring is just mounted here and you can just push this out and push in a new spring, rather than having to disassemble basically the entire tool to replace the spring. That's a personal preference. You might have this tool for 5-10 years, a spring never goes. You might have this tool and the spring breaks after like a month of you not really using it. It's a little bit of a quality control, a little bit of a good luck, bad luck kind of thing. The combo tool, I have not used a vast deal. Like, I haven't gone out of my way to open a can with this, nor would I choose to. The bottle opener works just fine. I'm going to be honest, the wire stripping notch is wide enough, and it's completely rounded off. It's wide enough that I don't really know who that's for. Like, that's a pretty thick gauge of wire that you're pushing through there. Using it as a package opener, I did try to break some tape. It does work, but if you want to use this as a package opener, I would advise taking a sharpening stone or a fine file and just giving this just a bit more of a sharp point just to go through. But if you did that, I think that would actually be a pretty fine package opening tool. And unlike a lot of package opening tool solutions, this actually has quite a nice little bit of reach. So, I'm 50-50 on this tool. On this size tool, I don't think you need a can opener at all. I think that could have been designed into something else, but why not, I guess. In terms of the tweezers, now obviously we don't have 2-scale tools, so you don't have the toothpick option, you just have the tweezers. I generally prefer having a slanted tip tweezer to a flat tip like you get in a Swiss Army knife. However, I must say I am not happy with these tweezers at all. They feel really thin and flimsy, and it feels like no matter how hard I try and squeeze and grip, I'm just not getting the purchase, you know, on the odd occasion that I need to, you know, tweeze a hair or whatever. Like, it's not getting the purchase to really do a satisfactory job. I would say the Victorinox tweezers and Leatherman tweezers are much better in that regard. I will try at some point. I haven't tried yet to see if some Leatherman tweezers might fit in here, because that would be an upgrade. But I'm not sure. I know the Leatherman have a much more pronounced bend at the top, so I'm not sure how well that would sit in here. But overall, that is how it stacks up against the Swiss Army knife competition. My thoughts on the tool in general, for the price point, which I believe this comes in at around £15, maybe a little bit less on sale. I think that's a great price point. I think the flat black anodized aluminium of the scales looks really nice. I think that the size, shape of the knife is very nice and more capable, much more capable than a 58mm Swiss Army knife. So if you're willing to make a few compromises on, say, the scissors not being quite as good, I would say definitely pick this up. This is not as compelling to me as the P1 was, but I'm also still happy that I own this, and I do still use this quite frequently. If you're looking to get a tool like this, I would say, yeah, you can't really go wrong here. But if you're willing to spend a little time and maybe check out eBay or something, you don't mind a second-hand tool, I would say that the Ambassador is a much better execution of this size tool. You do just miss some of the functionality of the combo tool, which in this form factor I don't think is a big deal. And if you want more in this size but more customizability, not customizability, but more functionality, then I recommend probably my favorite Swiss Army knife ever, which is the Executive, which is this but with an extra layer more tools. So that has been my thoughts on the Otacle K1. I don't think you'll go wrong with it if you get one, but in the long run it might be better to put your money somewhere else. But still a very valid option, and a great stocking stuffer, that kind of thing, as a gift. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think of the K1. Do you have one? Are you interested in it? That kind of thing. And if you like this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. It greatly helps the channel. And if you would like to help the channel more directly, then please consider joining the channel memberships or the Patreon, where you get benefits such as early access to videos. Until next time, I've been Paul, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.